Greetings and welcome to another Perspectives chat. Again, whatever falls across my radar and I feel is worthy of sharing. This time I came across this book just a few days ago, which I thought was interesting. It's a book which perhaps more people are familiar with than I was. It's called Your Body Doesn't Lie by John Diamond. And basically it's about kinesiology and muscle testing and behavioral kinesiology. It's supposed to be a classic in its field and was first published in 1979. So it's been out a while and it's probably a bit dated now. But I came across it and I thought it was interesting as I read through it quickly, because kinesiology is using your muscle testing reflexology to determine the health of your body and any kind of energetic weaknesses. It's a much more well-known field today, and obviously than it was when this book was written. Was really a kind of promotion of the field. And today we are a lot more knowledgeable about how external environments and impacts affect our bodily health, and obviously then our emotional and mental health. We have a lot more information about that. At the time, I think this book was sharing information which perhaps wasn't so readily known at the time. And it's based around testing the thymus gland. And the thymus gland is about here, just I suppose above the breastbone. And it's supposed to be, it is to do with immunology, and you can test the health of your body by testing your muscle reaction to the thymus gland. And the way they test in this book is the one where you put your arm out and you can see if you can bend it down to see if you have any strength or weakness. And first off, they do that by touching here your thymus gland and testing how strong it is. And often the thymus gland shows that the body is weak, and then you can test certain impacts, whether it's your environment, the food you eat, your visual, musical stimulus, to see if you have a weakness. And also the book recommends that several times a day you tap here, and that actually activates the thymus gland more, apparently, and it gives you helps to activate the immunology properties of the thymus gland just by tapping it. But what I thought was interesting is that the areas that the medical doctor John Diamond focused on checking were the areas of course, stress and emotions, the people around us, our physical environment, our food, our posture, and our music. And of course, we know how stress affects our physical health, and especially, I think I've talked about it also, about how we need to step back from being entangled in a lot of the stress of the world, because it does affect our bodily health, our mental focus, and it can kind of lower our frequencies, as we say. So here we know about that. Interestingly, this Dr. John Diamond tested many people regarding the people they were interacting with, and through this kinesiology he tested that many people showed a weakening of their bodily strength and their vital energy when around certain people. And certain people can actually withdraw energy from us. And I think that's more or less known. We know that some people give us bad vibes, as we say. Sometimes we refer to people as being psychic vampires. They can draw off energy. But this book actually just, through kinesiology, did confirm that it's very important that we choose the people who we interact with, and especially who we hang around with and spend more time with, because it has been verified that they can lower your vital energy. At the same time, you can be with someone who can increase your vital energy. So it's another theme that I've addressed, that in these times when, I've addressed that there's a kind of split reality, and we may find that people close to us may not be on our wavelength because they have a different perception of how they interpret what's going on in the world. And so in these terms, it is important that we choose who we interact and hang around with, because they can lower our vital energies, and there are those who can increase our vital energies. Another theme that he touched upon, of course, was food, and that is very well known now about the value of nutrition. And he tested certain processed foods, and the processed foods all lowered the body's vital energy. And but I think that's fairly well known, that we need to be careful about the foods we eat, or the diets or the food we choose to eat. Everybody's diet is different, and there's no one diet for everybody. I don't agree when someone says this diet is the best way to eat, full stop. You have to, just be a vegan, or you have to have a high meat diet. I would say that everybody's body is different, and you have to know your body, and you can't be dogmatic in terms of a diet for everybody. But it's important that you choose what works for your body. And in these times when we are in increased environmental stress, that we keep our vital energies high. But there was two other areas which I thought were interesting, and one was music. And John Diamond, the author here, says that he, before he wrote this book, he tested over 20,000 pieces of music to see which ones showed a reduction in the body's vital energy. And he said that out of all the classical music he tested, classical music did not lower the vital energy. There were only 2 pieces of classical music that he came across that lowered the vital energy. And those 2 pieces of classical music had a deliberate chaotic ending, as a way to show chaos at the end of the symphony. So they were deliberate, out of tune music. But apart from those 2 examples, all the classical music he tested all increased the vital energy, none lowered it. And interestingly, he also said that one would think that 1950s rock and roll music might lower the vital energy, because the 50s was when this type of boom, boom, boom music, really came, was birthed. And interestingly, he says the 50s music that he tested, rock and roll, did not decrease the vital energy. But he says interestingly, that virtually most of the music that he tested from the 1960s onwards lowered the vital energies. Not all, but a lot of it. But before the early 1960s, music did not lower the vital energy. So why would it be that music after the early 1960s would lower the vital energy, whereas before it didn't? And I came across an interesting hypothesis, is that there's been some talk about this switching of the musical tuning standard, and how it was recommended by certain institutions to change the musical tuning. Now, the standard adopted for tuning musical instruments was the frequency of 432 hertz, 432 hertz. That was the adopted frequency standard all the way until 1955. In 1955, the industry decided to change the musical standard to 440 hertz, 440 hertz. And they adopted that law in 1955, and of course it would take a few years to materialize and be adopted. So by the early 1960s, then yes, that would be adopted throughout the whole industry. It's interesting that this coincides with the dating here of that the lower vital energy started around that time. And there's been some commentary, if you look online, people are saying that the 440 hertz, the new musical standard, is actually less harmonic. So why would they change from a harmonic tuning standard to a less harmonic? I'm not a musicologist, I don't know, but if anybody out there has musical information on that, I'll be interested to hear that. So that was one thing that I thought was interesting, because in the book it recommends that we do find coherent, harmonious music to surround ourselves with. It's very important. And actually he did some testing on conductors, orchestra conductors, and he found all of them had high vital energies. And also he did a quick scan of all the well-known conductors, and they all had a very, very long lifespan, and a lot of conductors were still working, conducting orchestras into their late 80s and 90s. And so he saw a lot of vital energy in those people. So one recommendation is to find coherent music to surround yourself with. And for myself, I listen to music a lot on a daily basis, and always in the evening I put music on. And I find that surround myself by music, and incense or some low lighting always helps me to relax. Another thing he talks about is posture, saying it's very important to have the right posture. People who spend a lot of time sitting at computers, like myself, or factory work settings when you're hunched over, they had low vital energies. And it's very important, he says, to always have a straight back, and always find an erect posture when you're sitting, and even when you're walking or anything you do, always be aware and conscious of your posture, because the posture you take has a direct effect on your vital energy. And I think now in these times when more people are working with computers, sitting at desks, working from home, I would like to say be very mindful and conscious of the posture you take, and if need be, get up, walk around, shift your posture. Also, they recommend here lying on the floor with your knees up, with a straight back, for 5 or 10 minutes a day if you wish to kind of have a rest and realign your posture. And interestingly, I thought I would read this just to show how this book can be out of date as well. This amused me. He's talking about posture here, and also posture when driving is important. Many people spend long hours driving, and a lot of cars have their seat back, and so he says here, also interesting, he said sometimes if we have a bad posture, it can cause switching. And switching is when he says that the two hemispheres go out of sync and lose their coherency, and that can create a kind of loss of kind of precision, a loss of cognitive accuracy. And he says here, car seats can switch us too, meaning if we spend a long time sitting in a slumped car seat, it can cause hemispheric uncoupling, decoherence. He says here, I recall a patient who complained that if he drove for half an hour, he would become tired and confused and would start to misread traffic signals and directions. I advised him to sit on a firm board or sheet of hard plastic while driving. After that, he was able to drive for 10 hours and feel the same upon arriving at his destination as he had when he started. No fatigue, no confusion, and no stress. I'm not sure if today recommending sitting on a hard board in your car would actually be applicable. But then he goes on actually saying, I recommend that anyone who will be traveling by airplane carry a small, firm sheet of plywood or acrylic to sit on. This reduces fatigue and jet lag. Now, that's where I think it's quite dated. Traveling by airplane, carry a small, firm sheet of plywood. Imagine walking through the customs security radar and you're carrying your plywood, and you say, "And sir, what's that for?" "Oh, that's just my seat I'm carrying for the plane." And then imagine, walking up the stairs of the plane with your plywood board to put it on your seat. I think maybe perhaps airplane seats have advanced in the last 50 years to be more comfortable. I would hope so. Otherwise, I will shortly be going down to the hardware store to get my small plank of plywood for the next time I travel. In the meantime, thanks for listening, and travel well if you're going anywhere with your plywood board. But most of all, be mindful of your environment, the food you eat, the people you interact with, the music you listen to, and at all times be mindful and conscious of your posture. So back up. Okay, cheers.